Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips with Collyn Taylor for a look at Will Muschamp's midweek press conference that was today ahead of Saturday's noon kickoff at Ole Miss. And Will Muschamp came out, talked for about 23 minutes today. He was confident, he was cool, he was in a good mood.
Yeah, and I think this was kind of the best we've seen him all year. Just in terms of, he was in a jovial mood. I think he likes what he's getting from his team right now, the effort he's getting, and so he was laughing, he was joking around, made a couple jokes here and there, and he seemed about as good a mood as we've seen him all year.
Yeah, he did. He talked about Ole Miss a little bit, said they're an explosive football team. He always opens the presser talking about the upcoming opponent, and this week it is Ole Miss. And he said they're explosive, Collyn. He talked about their tempo, and he said that, when you're facing a tempo team, defensively, you got to get your cleats in the ground and be ready to play. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and they've talked about that a lot. They played Missouri was an up-tempo team, and they played a few others, and that's kind of the big thing that they focused on every time is when you play defensively, they're going so fast that a lot of times you could be running to get to a spot or misaligned, and that's when they can kind of take advantage of stuff. So the big thing with them whenever they play a team like Ole Miss this weekend is they're trying to, get set and get in a position to where they're not kind of out of position, and if they're in the right spot, then things usually go pretty well.
Muschamp gave the Gamecock injury report today as well, Collyn, and he started with Dennis Daly, Gamecock offensive lineman, who was out of Columbia. He's a Columbia native. Doubtful for Saturday's game against Ole Miss. He's wearing a boot with the ankle injury, did not practice on Tuesday.
Yeah, and, he's doubtful. I'm not sure he'll play. He came out 12 plays into the game. So it looks like Malik Young will take over at that left tackle spot. And Muschamp kind of reiterated today how good Young's played, and that the fact that they can bring in a senior that's logged a lot of snaps for them over the course of his career, they can plug him in if a guy goes down. So, it's obviously a step down from Daly. Otherwise, Young would be the starter. But Young's a solid option there, and I think that they're really, really set at the tackle positions with him and Wonnum kind of anchoring things.
Yeah, Muschamp praised Malik Young. Dennis Daly played the first 12 snaps this past Saturday against Tennessee, and then Young came in. Muschamp said he did a real good job for the Gamecocks. And Collyn, a couple of other players, several others actually on the injury report. The two safeties, eBay and Harvey, are out again this week. And I believe Muschamp said Randricus Davis and Chad Terrell are day-to-day.
Yeah, it's been frustrating for guys like eBay and Harvey just because, eBay's got that knee injury that's kept him out. Harvey's got a concussion that sidelined him for the better part of a month now. So those are frustrating. And with Randricus Davis, Muschamp said earlier in the week that it was a toe sprain. So they're kind of working through that, making sure he was a game-time decision for Tennessee and didn't play. So they're just kind of making sure everything's right with him. And Terrell had that ACL injury in the spring, and they said that he had this, some inflammation in his knee, and they didn't feel comfortable about putting him out there against Tennessee. So I think they're going to slow roll both of those guys, see if they get better, and if they do, then they'll play at Ole Miss this weekend.
Collyn, there really wasn't a lot to come out of the press conference today. I didn't feel. But one thing that Muschamp did talk about was Brian McClendon being on the sideline for the Tennessee game, and he kind of bounced back and forth between the press box and the field, and that started with the Missouri game. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, in the Missouri game, they had obviously the torrential downpour that kind of knocked their headsets out, so they didn't have communication with that. So McClendon, I vividly remember watching him sprint down from the press box, sprinted, took the elevator down and got on the sidelines and called plays in the second half against the Tigers. And obviously they came back and won that game. And I guess over the bye week, decided that he was going to call plays against Tennessee from the field, and kind of, it was his idea, and he brought it up with Muschamp and said that he was going to, he wanted to be down there for the receivers, kind of be able to get in their heads a little bit more and talk to them instead of doing that over the phone. And so that kind of worked, and he called plays from there. And Muschamp says he sees the game really well from the field, and they do a good job communicating with them from the box. And so that I think they think that that's going to be the thing moving forward in terms of calling plays and doing things, hopefully to be successful in the first half.
Very interesting. All right, Collyn, the Wonnum brothers honored by the SEC this week. Muschamp touched on that briefly.
Yeah, and said thank goodness for their parents for not only raising two incredible SEC type caliber athletes, but guys that work hard and come to practice with the right mindset. So they're very high on both Wonnum brothers, and it didn't take Dylan long to jump into the starting lineup. And we talked to some players today, like Zach Bailey, who said that they watched him practice and they could tell when it was just a matter of time before he cracked the starting lineup. And so that's one of those things to where both of them have really high ceilings. Wonnum, obviously, DJ Wonnum, you know what you're getting out of him being here for 3 years, but Dylan Wonnum looks like a guy that'll be able to anchor that offensive line, I guess, for the next 2-3 years to come.
All right, Collyn, going back to Saturday night's game against Tennessee, Carolina ran for 245 yards and only threw 16 passes in the ball game. And Muschamp was asked why the running game was so effective against Tennessee, and he said there were several answers. He said that Gamecock running backs made people miss and ran through contact really for the first time all year, at least to Muschamp's satisfaction. And Muschamp also said that on occasion UT was short a man in the box because of their scheme, because of their coverages, what they were trying to do defensively, and the Gamecocks took advantage.
Yeah, and, said that the backs were able to make people miss, and, they did a lot of really good things in the run game. And it starts, I think, Zach Bailey had a really, really good game, and a lot of the tight ends had a really good game blocking, too, in terms of Keel Pollard and Casey Crosby and a few others. So I think that's the identity they want to play with. Jake Bentley works better when he's, able to stretch the ball vertically, and the defense gets sucked into the run. So if they can run the ball, I know we talk about it a lot, but if they can run the ball well, that usually opens up a lot of different things. And I think you're going to see something similar this weekend in Ole Miss in terms of the game plan of wanting to get these guys carries early.
Collyn, Muschamp was also asked why it seems that Jake Bentley plays better when the Gamecocks are behind. And Muschamp said, I don't know that I have a good answer for that.
Yeah, that's just one of those things where, some things you just can't explain. And I guess Bentley, obviously this season they played from behind a lot, and I guess he's just comfortable with it. And, it'll be interesting to see because, he does play better like that, and he also plays better under pressure. I think Bentley plays better when he doesn't really have to think about a whole lot. I think he gets too much into his mind sometimes about thinking through things, and instead of just going out there and playing. And so I think it's a mental thing for him is, if you're down or if you're under pressure, you're not really processing as much. You're just trying to go out there and play and work things back into your favor. So I think that's why he does a little bit better than maybe if they're up or, he's got a clean pocket.
Mon Denson came up in the presser today as well, Collyn. Very interesting here. 10 carries all year for Denson. And he had 6 in the fourth quarter, had a touchdown run, and ran for 31 yards. He was effective. Yeah,
and that's a guy that's battled a hamstring injury all year. He hasn't been fully healthy. And so, he's finally getting back to 100%. I don't think he's there yet. But it's a great story just because, the coaches love him. He's a big part of their special teams packages as well. And they're happy to see a guy like that who's been having a frustrating year in terms of injuries come out there and actually produce when his number gets called.
One other item today, Collyn, talk about the possible makeup game on December the 1st. And Muschamp really didn't have a definitive answer or a firm answer, but he said that Ray Tanner is handling it. And Muschamp said that he was reluctant to give a timeline or time frame on when we'll know about that December 1st game. He said he would like to believe that it'll be within 2 weeks, but he didn't want to say for sure because he didn't want it to come back and bite him.
Yeah, and they're definitely going to play. That's kind of the sense we've gotten, and Muschamp even said it today that they're going to play. And right now you're kind of looking at maybe a Southern Miss who's not going to play in their conference championship game, it doesn't look like. There are a few other teams out there that they haven't necessarily put out in the public yet. So it's still kind of a wait and see. I wouldn't expect that decision to linger too long. Probably early to mid-November would be your time frame there, and it's probably going to be at noon on that December 1st. Just thinking through things, they really don't want to compete with the SEC title game at 4, some of the bigger night games as well.
So Gamecock football in December, not something we're accustomed to at all, but it looks like that'll be happening this year. Collyn Taylor, thanks very much.
Thank you for having me on.
That's Collyn Taylor, our staff writer with Gamecock Central, and I'm Emerson Phillips. Noon kick Saturday for the Gamecocks at Ole Miss. Thanks for joining us on Gamecock Central Radio.